So, Minister, I suppose the first thing I want to ask you is about the sanctions that were agreed finally yesterday by EU member states. Coal worth €4 billion, other sanctions on shipping and ports. What do you make of them so far?
So this is a really good signal that the pressure on Russia is increasing. It continues to increase. Of course, our request to our partners, especially in Europe, is very clear. We want to cut the sources for financing the war by Russia. And Russia receives about 1/3 of their public revenues and budgets from exporting oil. So that's why we are so keen on oil embargo, because it is direct source of financing war. But in other sectors like coal or steel previously, it is already a good signal that all the sectors of Russian economy should be cut out, so that Russia cannot actually, it's not only personal responsibility of sanctioned persons, in the natural persons, but also the whole sectors of Russian economy up to full embargo. But among all these industries, I think that oil is so important for us because of its direct impact on Russian ability to continue an increasing aggression against Ukraine.
So oil, you said, is 1/3 of the income for Russia, for its exchequer. And what about gas then?
So gas industry is situated is constructed in a way that it creates a lot of revenues for Russian economy, but less revenues for Russian budget. So that we are talking about, when we are talking about public finances, oil is a bigger source of public finances for state budget for Russia. But gas is a source of enrichment for all the people in the authority in Russia. Therefore, gas as well is important. And after all, gas is it was presented earlier as a core element of Russian sovereignty. That's why gas is so important from political point of view, economical point of view. But as I said, that indeed that we need to be aware that the Russian army is financed by export of oil.
So are you saying then you would like the EU to prioritise oil sanctions? And just talk us through then what that would mean, let's say, in the immediate and medium term, and how you see it might work for the EU in terms of them being able to find alternatives. I know that's not your job, obviously, but it's something that has to be overcome nonetheless.
First of all, indeed, it will be a very difficult project. So we are conscious, because as well for us, this project is difficult. Even immediately before the resume of Russian aggression, so in 24th of February, we imported almost 90% of our diesel from Russia and Belarus, because it was commercially more efficient, logistically more efficient. So even despite all the developments between us and Russia and Belarus, we imported the oil products, so that the diesel from the States. So that's why we understand how difficult it is to rearrange the market, but we have no other options. First of all, this is exactly, that in case of war, the comfort is secondary. It's for the later. So that's why we understand that this is for the general security of Europe, and that we need to cut the finances to Russian army, because it destroys Ukraine and threats all the region. And as well, simultaneously, we need to work on rearranging the market, because for Ukraine now is considering itself, it has no other options than to purchase all the diesel, all the fuels on European markets, or markets other than Russia. So that's why we are in the same situation. For us, this is a matter of urgency. For Europe, it's a matter of changing the reality of markets. So the task is same. And I think that we share all the concerns, but we believe that it is feasible, that we can reorient supply of oil and fuel from other states. Of course, it is difficult. The scale of problem is big, but we have no other options, and we have no time to wait, because the situation will not be easy. It will get worse and worse.
Did you say there that Ukraine was also importing oil from Russia?
Not now. So of course, no, we do not have any trade with Russia and Belarus starting from 24th. But yes, before the 24th of February, we imported products.
And the alternative now for Ukraine?
So we are looking for any diesel around the globe. So in Europe, in the United States, in Arab world, so any fuel from the world, because we have no other options. We need to survive, our military, our agriculture, our transport, and that's why we understand the concerns of Europeans, because now we are tackling this problem as could Europe in case of embargo. But we believe that this exercise is doable, and we believe that there is no time to wait. So if embargo will be imposed 6 months later, not now, it will change nothing, it will only get worse.
Yeah, because and we heard this from your fellow Minister Kuleba yesterday and from President Zelensky. Explain to people what it would mean to the Russian army if there was an oil sanctioning in the next few days, how that would really dramatically impact possibly the war.
It means that there will be limited capacity to pay salaries to Russian soldiers. It will be impossible to produce weapons by Russian factories, logistics, etc. So if you cut your finances by 1/3, you immediately should limit the expenditures. You have no other options. So maybe or speed up the ruining of your economy or your public finances. In any case, the result will be visible here and now. So that's why it is so important.
When you look at Europe, obviously, you know, I suppose you welcome the move so far. What do you think about countries around the world like India and China who have not made the same moves?
I think that the temptation to use the situation in your own favor, in the favor of the states, is extremely big. But we see, that usually it's not governments, but businesses were more cynical, saying that business is business, politics is politics. But we see the exodus of big companies from Russia. And this is a litmus for the states like India and China, that making these absolutely egoistic choices is a wrong choice at all. So of course that it's in their habits, they have their own sovereign choices, but even if companies who are by themselves oriented only for profits, not for morale, are exiting Russia, it should be a clear message and lesson for these states.
But I mean, given the historic nature of this war, we're comparing it to World War II. The moral authority that exists for those countries. I mean, should there be some sort of repercussions that if they're neutral, but there's even a question over China supporting Russia?
So, free replies to your question. So, first of all, like Minister Kuleba said yesterday in NATO, unfortunately, indeed, what happens in the territory of Ukraine is Second World War. The same scale of tank and artillery battles destroying everything. So this is the atrocities of the same scale as World War II and the same harshness of the battle. So the Russians simply destroy everything in the areas with high density of populations when we are talking in Donbass. This is destroy of whole cities. Totally, absolutely. So this is a total war against us. So that's why it cannot be compared to any military operation of modern military operation. So this is one element. The second element, I think that first of all, with all the attempts to develop relations with India and China by Russia, it is clear that Europe is more important even for Russia, because if Europe will stop buying Russian oil, it will not be replaced, or India and China will not replace. This is first thing. And for China and India, Europe and Western world is more important than Russia. So therefore, I believe that all these implications are at minds of Chinese and Indian politicians, and at the end they will make proper choice. So that they, of course, they try to be neutral, advocating for resolution of conflict, but at the end they will be on the proper side of this story.
You think?
I hope so, not because I'm, let's say, naive, but I think that in terms of calculations, who is better partner, Russia or Europe? I think Europe is better partner for China and India, even if with all differences on human rights and other important topics.
And when you see, I mean, obviously you see it more, but the atrocities in Bucha this week, the bodies of people, the reports about the use of rape as a tool of war, bodies with their hands behind their back, mass executions. I mean, when you see your own people going through that, how do you find it, though, that anybody could stand by and be neutral, any country, any leader?
I think it's not only about politicians. What we saw in Bucha, and especially the situation of massive rapes of women, it's like Russia intentionally tries to ruin what is important for all the world. So after all the stories of Me Too movements and the rights of women in the world globally, it's not only for Western world. What Russia is doing is just massively rape women, just ruining their right to live. So that's why it's even worse than just massive killings. It's just really their war against all what is important to the whole the world. So that's why it is so awful. That's why it's so inhuman, and that's why in the end it will be clear for everyone that no one can actually support Russia, because it's not about Western values, it's about global values. And we see that actually we see no states who are so aggressive against women. It's otherwise. So that's why it's only one example. So we can say that what Russia is doing with the same with wheat and grain and food security. Hunger is a in sustainable development goal, hunger is priority number 2, poverty and hunger. And what Russia is doing is just exporting poverty and hunger to Africa, to Arab world globally, because it just by blocking Ukrainian seaports, it just make it impossible for a lot of people around the world to feed them. Ukrainians, we will, with help of Europe and our partners, we will feed ourselves. But now we have a possibility to feed the world as well. We have big stocks. We have millions of wheat blocked in Ukraine, million tons of wheat blocked in Ukraine. We are expecting new harvest in several months, and that's we can feed the world. But Russia just purely increase hunger in the world. So that's why they actually fight against humanity generally. It's not fight against us.
That's a final question, just because obviously you're a trade minister, that's your specialty. What is the impact the war is going to have on global commodities, given Ukraine's position as an exporter for barley, corn, wheat, and the blockade of things like the Black Sea? Talk us through the impact that's about to have. So
for grain commodities, it will be disaster if blockage will continue, because Ukraine and Russia, we have a quota of export for wheat. Ukraine by itself have 15% of share of international trade of corn and 10% for barley. So of course nominally someone can calculate that these volumes can be replaced, but the absence of this volume on market, and what Russia is doing is just blocking us to be present on this market, will push the prices to the level which will be unaffordable for a lot of nations. So that's why it is impossible to maintain balance on the grain markets globally without us, without Ukraine. So that's why what we are doing now is that we are trying together with the European Union to ensure logistics, because we have stocks, we will have harvest despite aggression. So we will produce corn and wheat, but Russia does not allow us to export it, to deliver it. So that's why we will arrange other routes of supply. Of course, we cannot replace these volumes fast, because we used to use our seaports in Odessa and Mykolaiv and Kherson and Mariupol. But now we need to go by land to Romania or Poland. So that's why it's not an easy task. The same for steel production. So in Mariupol we had biggest steel production facilities for Ukraine, which exported quite important goods to Europe, to whole Europe, to North Africa, Middle East, and now we see the same situation: the shortages, prices, etc., so that this market is turbulent again. And the only solution for us, and that this is what we discuss here in Brussels, is to ensure the smooth operation of all logistics and markets for steel products between Ukraine and Europe in order to ensure efficiency of this market and efficiency of prices and deliveries as well. So indeed, Russia intentionally, because they really aware about these problems, they intentionally create more and more problems to hold the world. And this is what actually means that they fight not only against Ukrainians, but all the world.
Okay, Minister, thank you very much for coming in to us. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.